continue our series, and tonight is not question and answer night on Titus's lesson. We'll let him handle that one, and it probably won't be get as many views on our channel as his did, but we'll see if we can get through it anyway. We have been talking about different things, and the series is the church has a blank problem, and we started filling in the blanks and trying to do this not on a negativity standpoint, but just the reality of recognizing that each of us have struggles, each of us have problems that makes problems in our lives, that makes problems in our congregations, and how can we get through those. We talked about bullying in the church. There's individuals who bully that want to just think that they're the ones that's right and want to control what everyone else does throughout even the brotherhood. Titus talked about last week that the church has a sex problem of dealing with these issues that come up, especially when it comes to the internet and it comes to pornography and things of this nature. It's really things that we really have to face. I kind of come to these lessons more with the ones that I do anyway, more from either this has been me, this is what I've experienced throughout my Christian life, or just some things that I've seen. And tonight it is no different. And the title, I guess if we're putting the title to it, is I believe the church has a sensitivity problem. And what I mean by that, I think sometimes we get offended easy. If you even look out into the world, I think the world today gets offended easy. You can't say anything, you can't do anything that doesn't offend somebody. And I think that even happens in the church. Have you ever been offended in your life? Anybody? Nobody's ever been offended? Ever? A time or two? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever been offended in the church by a brother or sister in Christ? Have you ever offended a brother or sister in Christ? Just about all these, I could just keep my hands up. Some of them I could raise both hands. I think we have been. And you start thinking of why we do get offended and the reasons we get offended. I find as I get older, my reasons that I get offended are different. And I'm starting to realize the little things that used to offend me and irritate me or make me angry because they're happening, I'm starting to find out that really doesn't mean anything at all. And it's usually these little things that happen that offend us. But sometimes we have to walk on eggshells around individuals because they get offended easy. And it can be just little things that happen that can offend us. When it comes to offenses, it's usually because of what somebody says to us or what somebody does to us. It can be what somebody didn't say or even what somebody didn't do. We get offended because we don't feel appreciated. We can get offended because we feel left out of something. We can get offended because our children have been left out of something. That can be a real issue. You know, we've been talking in our parenting class that one thing that we have to realize when we're parenting, that people parent differently. That you don't only parent based on biblical principles, you parent based on your own experiences and how you were raised, and you parent accordingly sometimes. And there may be something that, because of your experiences in life, that you don't let your child do that somebody else may do. And it may be all right for them to, but because of your experiences you don't, and sometimes there's offenses because of that. Because somebody will get offended, one, because their child was put in the spot of not being able to do that, or the other parent may be offended because they think it looks bad on them because their child is doing it to somebody else. It may not have anything even to do with something that's wrong or not. But we get offended, especially I think when it comes to our children sometimes. And again, this is no different in congregations. And I've seen just over my lifetime of being a Christian, the time that I've been a Christian in any meetings, especially since I've been a minister, in any meetings that I've been in, whether it's been preacher meetings, elders, deacons, and preachers meetings, or whatever it is, a lot of the problems that are discussed has nothing to do with doctrine, has nothing to do with things of this nature. It has to do with, it started with somebody got offended and it created a problem within a congregation. Now, how do you deal with that? How do you address those things? And I think it's because we're too sensitive sometimes, that we wear our feelings on our sleeves. And sometimes we need to take a step back and realize, one, am I doing the offending? And is it a realistic thing? And how do I take care of that as a person? Or I have to look at myself, do I become offended too easily? Because of what someone says or what someone does. And I'll just be honest with you, I think this comes on the same level of complaining or something. I think some people are just happier when they're ready to be offended. Almost like I actually brought a object lesson tonight. Anybody know what this is? It's a rock. Just normal rock. Don't get too deep in it. I don't know, it may be something fancy, but it's just a rock. And I've come to realize, I've often thought, you take John chapter 8. You remember what happened in John chapter 8? Remember they brought the adulterous woman to Jesus? Is that off again? Oh, I got a red light. There we go. That better? They brought the adulterous woman to Jesus. Now we can get into that was she really caught in adultery? Because where was the man? And there's a lot to that. The Pharisees were trying to trap him. Remember, we talked about all of that when we talked about our bullying, how the Pharisees bullied Jesus. But they brought this woman to Jesus, and they're all there like this, aren't they? They're ready to stone her. And Jesus starts writing on the ground, and then it says one by one, from the oldest to youngest, they began to leave. What they do? They drop their rocks and leave. Why? Because Jesus said, "Ye that without sin, what? Cast the first stone." And I got to really thinking about that. I don't think anybody, I don't believe, wants to stone somebody, do we? We don't always think, "Oh, I'm going to stone somebody." But I do believe a lot of times we're rock carriers. I think we want to hold on to our rock in case that opportunity arises. We're so ready to be offended. We're so ready to be angry. We're so ready to lash out at someone. We want a rock handy in case we need it. And I think we do more carrying. I look at it like when I got my gun permit. I tried to decide what kind of gun am I going to carry. Well, I shoot better with a certain gun. But that gun's pretty heavy. So I carry a gun that I can fit in my pocket because I do more carrying than I do shooting. I don't think I have to shoot, every day, but I carry every day. So I wanted something where I can carry. So I do more carrying than shooting, but I carry a gun because I'm ready to. And I think sometimes we carry our rocks around because we're ready to. We're ready to be offended. We're ready to cast these stones if we need to. Now, we could back up and we could say, well, I do that because it's righteous indignation. I'm upset. I'm defending. I'm defending the truth. I'm right. And there's a place for that. There's a place for righteous indignation. There's a place for standing up for the truth and having to stand up in that way. But if you look at the way that Jesus handled all the things that came to him. I tried to look this up and I thought I wrote it down. I didn't. I believe Jesus was, well, let's put our verse up there, Ben. Let's put the first verse up here. And I want to tie this in with it. Notice what James says. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. How many of us actually practice this? I mean, truly practice this. You do? Yeah, I think we try. I don't think I do a very good job, especially the slow to speak part. I'm very, very quick to speak. And that's something I have been working on, and I think I am getting better at it. But Jesus practiced this perfectly. I think I looked it up. I think Jesus was asked in the Gospels, I think he was asked 103 questions. And most of those questions, of course, were trying to trap him, right? But he was asked 103 questions. You know how many he directly answered? 3. 3. And actually, Jesus himself asked, I believe it was like 370-something questions himself. What does that tell me? He was swift to hear, he was slow to speak, and he was slow to wrath. He listened. He was a people person. He listened to individuals. He helped them. He listened to what they had to say. He didn't get just irate at the start of things. He didn't just get just totally upset and shocked about sin. He never compromised sin. Take the woman at the well. You take the woman at the well. He wasn't there at that well and said, when she come up, said, oh, you've been with 5 men and now you're living with one. You don't have no right. I can't be around you, you adulterer. You get away from me. I can't. That shocks me that you're in that situation. Or what about when the disciples wanted him to decide who's going to be the greatest, who's going to be his right-hand man in his kingdom? Did he look at them and say, are you kidding me? Did he just say, I'm tired of this? Did he get on social media and said, the world is just crumbling around me? I can't believe how awful people are. No, he handled the situation, but notice how he handled it. I think he handled it by practicing it this way. But we are so ready, we've got our rocks to where we're ready and wanting that opportunity just to sling it. So we carry it around with us because we're so sensitive and we may get offended easy. And I'm preaching to myself. I carry several rocks with me. You know, I'm ready to throw them at any time. And I try to be better at that. I try to think, okay, what is it that really... What am I waiting for? And I think here's where the crutch to it is because we claim, well, I'm right. We stand behind the thing, well, I'm right. And this offends me, and I'm right in this situation. And you know what? I've decided I've got to ask myself, am I trying to be right or am I trying to make a difference? And I think there's a difference in that, isn't there? And I think most of the time when I'm getting offended, when I'm trying to stand on what's right, it's because I'm saying I'm right. I'm trying to prove a point instead of trying to make a difference. And I don't think that's how we should be. I think we should practice this. Now, I'm not talking about compromising sin. I'm not talking about we shouldn't be upset with sin. And we shouldn't defend the truth, contend earnestly for the truth. I'm not talking about we shouldn't do those things. I'm talking about it's our attitude and how we do it. And it's not so much about sin. When I'm really thinking about the sensitivity part, I'm thinking about just the little things that we get offended by. That sometimes, I'm not an elder, but I have sat in on some elders, deacon, and preacher meeting at different congregations that I've been at, and I've listened to some of the conversations. And most of the time it's because somebody got offended about something little and it grew into this and it grew into that. I can't imagine a lot of times what leadership has to deal with if they've got a real sensitive congregation. And it can be a problem. And it shouldn't be like that. You know, my reflex is defense. My first emotion to go to is defense. Don't question me. Don't question me about this. And I have to be real careful, and I think about this verse a lot, thinking, okay, I need to listen more. I need to think about this more. And I don't need to rush to wrath and anger because of it. And I need to make sure I'm not carrying that rock around where I'm ready to throw it, because once I throw it, I can't get it back. And what kind of damage am I doing by throwing it for personal gain, maybe? Because it's not something that's a sin issue. It's something that's a personal issue. And because we can get offended because we can say, well, this matters because it's my offense. And I don't only get mad at a situation, I get mad at someone questioning me for getting mad about it. And I may even get offended by someone who's not mad about the same thing I am. Because it's my issue. You ought to be mad about the same thing. You ought to be offended by the same thing that I'm offended because I'm in the right. Does that sound familiar maybe? Does that happen? I think it does. And I think we need to make sure that we are thinking about that. We're thinking about our actions. We're thinking about this. Now notice though, James doesn't stop here. Look what he adds to it. So then, my brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. What does my anger change? What does my anger benefit? What does me being offended by something little of, and I can name things. I could ask each of you, you got offended by this? You ever got offended by this? You know, I've gotten situations at congregations where both of us was offended because I was sitting in the wrong pew. They got offended because I was sitting there. I got offended because they told me I was sitting there. Over what? You can't move another row up? I mean, think about it. It's little things like this sometimes. But if I get angry over something like that, or wherever we want to put it, what's he say here? For the wrath of man, it doesn't produce the righteousness of God. I'm trying to prove a point. I'm not trying to make a difference. I'm not achieving something. If Jesus did that, if Jesus got upset every time he was faced with something that came up when he just got now, you can say, well, he turned over the money changers. He drove them out. Yeah, he did. But did he get shocked over the sinners? Did he look at his disciples when they were griping about who's going to be the greatest? Or what about when Peter denied him? When Peter was his inner circle, and Peter said, no, not me. I'll never deny you. I'll die for you. And he looked eye to eye to Jesus after he denied him 3 times, as Jesus said he would. How did Jesus handle that? Again, he didn't look at the disciples and say, I can't believe you, Matthew. You're just a tax collector. Look where I brought you from. You're a zealot over here. You're just an old cussing fisherman over here. He didn't do all that. What did he do for Peter? He went to Peter, gave him another chance, talked to him, and gave him an assignment. Go feed my sheep. That's the example we should take. Look in Matthew. When a learned man come up to Jesus, just tell me, what's the greatest? What's the greatest commandment? Tell me that one thing that I need to do. What did he say? You shall love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. What's the second one? The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Shouldn't our first response be love and not offense? Love doesn't mean compromise. God so loved the world that He sent His only begotten Son. Did He compromise on sin? No, it's a choice that we make. I choose that love is going to be my first response. When somebody says something that offends me, makes a comment in our congregation that might offend me, or do something, or whatever it is, these little trivial things, my first response should be love. It shouldn't be offense. But I don't know if you're like me, sometimes that's not my first emotion that arises. Is it? I've been offended in this congregation, and I'm sure I've offended other people. I may not even know it. Some I may have known it. It happens everywhere. So what do? Our first response needs to be love. Needs to be, am I trying to make a difference like Jesus was, or am I trying to make a point? And there's a big difference in that. So what do we do? How do we do that? I think one is, and this may sound strange, I think we need to lower our expectations of people. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of times I don't think we're offended by the person. We're offended by the expectations that I put on that person. And they may not meet that expectation. I may think they ought to be a certain way, and then they may not end up being that way. And most of the time that way is do what I want them to do, say what I want them to say, this type of thing. I mean, think about it. maybe lower our expectations. And one thing I think in doing that is realize is we all sin and fall short of the glory of God, don't we? Notice in Timothy, 2 Timothy, says, notice what Paul says about individuals. Unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. You know what he's saying? People are going to be like this. There's going to be individuals like this. Why? Because of sin. We all sin and fall short of the glory of God. It doesn't mean that this is right, but if someone does that, should I be shocked that they do it? Should I be offended? Like, I can't believe that. Well, the Bible tells us that people are going to be like that. You ever been lied to? I've been lied to. You ever been someone leave you out of something, hurt your feelings? Someone say something about you? Now, I'm not one, I guess I should have said this on the onset. I don't think I'm one that gets offended easy. If you do something to my family, I'd get offended. If you say something about my sermon, I'd get offended. Say something about my clothes, I'd be offended. Say something about how I look, I'd be offended. How I talk, I guess I do get offended easy, don't I? I could list them all down through here. But we all have things that offend us, or we may take offense to. And we have to ask ourselves, why? You know, why is that? Why am I offended at this? Why am I just wearing my feelings on the sleeve? And I'm so shocked if someone disappoints me. Well, because they're not perfect. They're going to fall short. It's all in how I address it. It's all in how, again, am I trying to make a difference or am I trying to make the situation worse? And anytime I ever think about times I've got offended and got angry because of it, I don't think I've ever made the situation better. Who have I brought? This is, what I was thinking about when I was talking about bullies in the church that come and they try to bully other preachers, and I want to know if you're preaching the truth or not, or I want to know if you're doing this. And as I said, the ones that brought the sheet in wanted John to fill it out one time. He said, "You just listen to me. You'll see if I'm a false teacher or not. I ain't filling out a paper." But people want to do that. Why? Because they want to feel that they're right. They want to feel that they're superior. But when it comes to this offense, we get into a situation to where we just think that makes us superior. I'm the one that's in the right. And we try to stand behind that. But when you think about individuals that do things like that, who are we bringing to Christ that way? Who are we bringing to Christ by being mad, by being upset, by being angry, by being offended? Who do we bring to Christ? Who do we actually show Christ living in us when we do that? Show me an example of Christ doing that. He stood up for the truth. He stood up to those bully Pharisees that came and tried to test Him over and over again. I would have said, "I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I'm done." Poof. Whoosh. I'd scorch the earth. I think about that when I think about Him praying to the Father. "Father, if there's any other way, let this cup pass from me." I've just often wondered myself, is the big temptation and the big struggle He's having not only the physical pain He's going to have to go through, but knowing who He is, what He could do, as He told Peter, "You don't need to do this. I could call legions down here." Can you imagine someone spitting in your face and doing things to you like that, having the ability to take care of it like He did, but the self-control to not? Think about that. And He's the best example of living the truth than we've ever had. So to say, "I'm just living the truth," but be hateful and offended and irritated all the time, how is that defending the truth? And again, I'm speaking from back here up. How do I defend the truth? How do I defend the truth like that? How am I, if I'm just offended by what everybody does around me? Where a congregation may have to walk on eggshells because of me. People around me at work may have to walk on eggshells because of me, because they know I like carrying that rock. And I'm waiting for that opportunity to throw it. But I think if we lower our expectations, not to the point, I'm not saying don't expect anything good from people, I'm not saying that. I'm saying understand none of us are perfect. As Jesus, what was Jesus writing on the ground? I don't know. Maybe he was writing the sins, listing sins of everybody who was there getting ready to throw a rock, and as they seen their sin come up, they dropped their rock and left. I don't know. The point he was making, okay, throw a rock if you don't have any sin. Nobody could say that. So maybe we need to lower our expectations to think, one, that I'm perfect, or two, that I think everybody else is perfect, when they're not. They can't possibly be perfect. But again, I think sometimes it's not the person that offends us, it's the expectation of that. And maybe it's like everything else. It's like bitterness, or it's like anger, or it's like any of these other emotions. They become a part of us so long, maybe we don't know how to be any different. Because maybe we've not gone back and really studied that master teacher of how to live that Christian life and walk in that light. I walk in that light knowing that I'm going to sin and fall short of God's glory. I walk in that light knowing as long as I'm walking in that light, that blood continues to cover me. And I forget that for other people. Because I can look and see what offends me about you, but I can't see it in me. I don't do that. I'm in the right here. I'm the one that got offended. I'm in the right. I'm standing behind this. Well, what am I standing behind? My own pride? My own opinions? Well, I think so, because my opinion's better than anybody else's, because it's my opinion. So my offense is worse than anybody else's because it's my offense. I think like Paul, we've got to take a good hard look, examine ourselves. Don't examine ourselves based on each other, but examine myself based on the truth. And how am I living that? Am I living this Christian life? Am I walking in the light by being offended all the time? By being that sensitive where I cause these disruptions to where I'm causing problems instead of making the difference that I should be making? And sometimes I don't think that's the case. In Ephesians chapter 2, here's another thing I think that will help us, is as we're lowering the expectations of individuals, maybe we need to raise our gratitude for God's grace. Notice what he says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, that not of yourselves," it's a gift of God, "not of works, lest anyone should boast." I don't have anything I should boast about. It's not of myself that I'm saved. That was a gift from God. I didn't deserve it. So how do I in turn, am I grateful enough for that? I think if I am, then that's going to determine how I associate with other people, what my attitude is to other people. I don't think I'd be offended or as sensitive enough if I put a little more gratitude on God's grace for me. Maybe I need to show a little bit of that to somebody else. And let's just face it, anybody ever have a bad day? I do. I have bad days. So if I have a bad day, am I going to maybe in that day say something a little sharp? Am I going to do maybe a little something out of character? We don't know what the other person's going through. We don't know what another person's facing. I can remember a couple at a congregation I was at. I'll be honest, I thought was the most miserable people I'd ever been around. I thought they just loved to be in misery. They were grumpy all the time, seemed like. They were never happy. I don't know if I ever seen them smile. And the more that I got to know them outside of a congregational setting, I started realizing the kind of life that they've had, the burdens that they had to bear. And it started to explain a little bit, started to open my eyes a little bit to who they were. And it made me look at it differently. And I thought, at my worst moments, is that what people only see of me? Just me at my worst moment, and I get offended real easy, or they get offended real easy by what I've done, or they just look at me at that. And I think sometimes that can happen. It can take something little that offends us that can turn into something great. And when I mean great, I don't mean good, I mean big and bad. When we can stop it just at that first offense of, why am I offended by this? Why am I offended because that this happened, or that this didn't happen? Well, there may be a lot of reasons that it happened. It may be because this person had a bad day, didn't realize they said it. I've offended people and they've come and told me, and I didn't even realize I did it until they told me. Maybe that's the case. Maybe I'm offended. I've done this before. I've been offended by somebody and really held a grudge and just look at them like, oh, just... And they didn't even have a clue. They were living the best life ever was. I was the one in misery. They didn't even know they did it. And then as we got to talking, they really didn't do anything. I just took it the wrong way. I don't know about you. I've took things the wrong way sometimes. You know, we have to really look at ourselves and say, is this really worth... I don't know, maybe this is an age thing. As I'm getting older, I'll be 55 in, I don't know, less than a month. As I get older, I start thinking, okay, I'm at this age. There's a little less in front than there is in the back of me. You know, there's a little less time here than there is back here. So I start looking at things different, thinking, why did I waste my time so long being upset about that? Or being offended by this? Or spending so much time on this little thing when it didn't amount to a hill of beans? Didn't mean nothing. But I got offended by it. And caused a ruckus, probably because of it, that shouldn't have been. As the Bible says, it doesn't produce the righteousness of God. I'm not making a difference at all when I do that. When I feel like I've got this, I'm in the right and you're in the wrong, and I can't back down because I'm in the right and I'm trying to prove that point, I'm not bringing anybody closer to Jesus by that. As a matter of fact, I'm taking myself farther away. But we seem to want to do it. But what do? I think have a little more gratitude, because we want to keep this on the positive. Okay, here's what happens. How do we do better with this? Is have more gratitude for the grace of God. Realize what He's done for us. Realize the sacrifice that was made for us, of Him dying on the cross. I can't sacrifice a little bit of my attitude because somebody offended me by, I don't know, doing something little. I don't know, I could name 100 things, I guess. I can't make that one sacrifice and just say, you know, this isn't all about me. It's not about my feelings. And I still believe the church is one place everybody has their say, but not everybody has their way, because we can't. It's not about me. I've seen decisions that were made in congregations, and I think, why would you make a decision like that? Having no idea why, and not realizing that, okay, because it affects this, and this, and it's not all about Ronald. So why do I get offended by it? I think it happened. Any thoughts? I'm not stopping to ask. Anybody got any thoughts? Questions, comments, anything? Does this sermon offend you? I'm coming for you. I'm coming for myself, so I should get through this and try to offend everybody before I'm done.
Like Ben Shapiro said, facts don't care about your feelings.
What's that?
Like Ben Shapiro said, facts don't care about your feelings.
And boy, that's tough, isn't it? That is, and that's true. And I tell you what's the flip side of it. We preach all the time, when it comes to salvation, feelings don't matter. It's not about what I feel. I'm not doing right because I feel right. I feel right because I'm doing right. There's a big difference in that. So we understand that when it comes to salvation. Why do our feelings get hurt so much over little things? And it happens everywhere. And we're not immune to it. But I think if we recognize it and try to apply these principles of, okay, maybe I need to realize a little more, everyone sins and falls short. And I have to realize a lot of the things I get offended by has nothing to do with sin anyway. It has to do with my own feelings. Now, should I be considerate of other person's feelings? I tell you what I had to learn as a minister, and this is going to sound funny to say it, but it's actually true because people are different. The hardest thing that I had to deal with as a full-time minister was this. And I actually had a person actually get really offended at me because of this. I was at a doctor's office, and it doesn't mean this wasn't important, but a lady was having her pinky toe, part of it, taken off because of diabetes. So I was there in the waiting room with her husband, and I was, just being there for him because I tried not to miss anything like that. While I was there, I got a phone call. Another member had a major heart attack and was being taken to the emergency room. Well, I went there. She got offended and quit coming to church because of it. Because I wasn't there when she come out of the waiting room. I was at the emergency room at the hospital. Well, I had a choice to make. I felt like that was the place I needed to be, the one having the heart attack, not the one having the pinky. Not that the pinky toe being, I wouldn't want my pinky toe part of it took off. But I had to make a choice, and they got upset. And that's what I don't understand. Somebody offends us, but we take it out on God. We take it out on His church. And I've never understood that. And here's what I had to learn. All individuals different, and I'm the same way. When I get sick, I'm a big baby. I've got to be took care of. Nobody has a cold like I have. Nobody has the flu like I have. Nobody gets sick like I do. You don't understand. It's different for me, so you need to treat me different. Some of us are like that. But I had to realize some people, they could be having a major heart attack. They don't want you around. They're very private people. Some people, if they blow their nose, you better be standing there with a tissue, or they're going to get offended if you don't. And that sounds harsh, but it's reality, isn't it? That's one thing that was hard for me to work through, to realize, and one doesn't make the other bad. That's just how we are. So we have to realize people are different, and sometimes you have to treat people differently based on that, because some people wear their feelings on their sleeve or get offended real easy. And I think in a lot of things in congregations, we have to deal with things like that. And we have to understand that. Some people just take a little different care than other people do. How do you work through that? I think it goes back to love. Love should be our first motive. Love God first, then love our neighbor as ourselves. So, go the golden rule. Taking an offense approach, you do unto others what you want them to do to you. You take that pro-action. You don't wait. You take that pro-action to do it. You do something good first. You do it because it's the right thing to do. And you show that love, not that offense. And I think that would go a long way for peace and harmony. The Bible says, as so much as depends upon me, I will live peaceably with all people. It's on me. I can't look and say, well, I can't live peaceable because of this person. Well, what am I doing to live in peace? What am I doing to make it better? What am I doing to say that soft word, as Proverbs says, that turns away wrath? What am I doing to do that? Instead of being the one to say that harsh word that turn them away from God. Many times that's our go-to. And it shouldn't be. As Christians. We need to think about love. Remember what Jesus said, what our badge of disciple is? He said, they will know you're my disciples by what? If you have love for one another. That's how the world knows we're His disciples. You ever thought of that? It's not my righteous indignation. It's not my anger in defending the truth. It's showing love for one another. That's how the world knows we're His disciples. Again, this has nothing to do with compromising truth. It has nothing to do with standing up for the truth. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this attitude of I'm offended by everything because I'm right. That doesn't show love for one another. That shows the world that we're not disciples of Christ. We are just a bunch of people that meets together and quarrels a lot. Gets their feelings hurt a lot. Just listen to how, the world sees us. Go back to Colossians. especially Colossians 3, about how it's about me getting smaller and Christ getting bigger. So when the world sees, they don't see Ronald, they see Christ. And how would Christ act? How offended does he get when things happen? Any comments at all? Any final comments? Was that the first bell or second bell? Already second. Well, I hope one thing that this lesson does is cause each of us to look at ourselves and say, okay, the church has a sensitivity problem, but maybe one lesson we can do is, I'm not it though. Each one of us should be able to say that. Not a particular verse, but John May can help with that. It's in Colossians 3, I think, about being covered in Christ, and I don't know what's the verse, John. About where we get smaller and Christ gets. It's in Colossians 3 about putting on Christ and the world seeing Christ and not us. You had to call me out on that, didn't you? I'll think about that. I'll give you an answer before we leave here. It's Colossians 3. What's that? 3:12. Put that up there. It says, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercy, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering. Bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you also must do. That's a great one. That's not the one I was thinking of, but I should have used that tonight. That's perfect. That's what we need to think of. And even in Philippians, when Paul said, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things of good report, think on those things. Don't think on the things that offend you. Think on those good things. Think on those good things that makes us walk easier, clearer, and even better as we're walking in the light. I think that's what we ought to be trying to do. And hopefully that's what we are. Now I got to sit down and look up that verse.